I'm very excited again to have one of our regulars, Chelsey Brooke Cole, who will be back on to talk about how the voice of the narcissist gets in your head and how to get it out. If I can get her on. I don't know what is going on with this. So weird. There she is. Okay. Let's try it again. Chelsey, I think it's been like a couple months since we've been on together. Okay, good. It's working.
Okay, we're here.
How that happened?
I know. I heard you just saying like, "Oh, Chelsey's been on here before, no problem." And yep, here we are having issues. So
I know, but now we're not. Now we can get started.
we're good.
So yeah, I'm really excited about this one. You know, the voice of the narcissist in your head is like a big deal.
Huge.
And we often talk about, actually, before I'll even start, why don't I have you introduce yourself formally, Chelsey? Because even though we've been together several times,
Yes.
Just in case people don't know you, do it again.
Yes, happy to be joining you guys again. I always say y'all are one of my favorites. Love to be on here. So I'm Chelsey Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist specializing in narcissistic abuse and relationship trauma. I'm just coming actually from talking to clients all day about narcissism. We're going to keep talking about it. So I'm excited to get started. And of course, I have a new book coming out. I've been talking about it. It'll be out next year. We can talk about that in the wrap up as well on how to understand and heal from narcissistic abuse, touching on some of these things actually. Going into, I kind of describe it, it's like therapy in book form. So like what I work on with clients, I've broken that down so that you can follow the process. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, so before we got on, I said, remind me to tell you something during the interview. Yes. And that actually relates to our book. So we are having our book come out on September 7th, 2023. And Chelsey was one of the people that submitted advance praise for us. And so Chelsey, you're actually on the front cover.
What?
Yeah, you're the one right on the front cover. We have a bunch on the back. We have a couple on the back cover, and we have a bunch inside. But you are the one on the front cover.
I can't believe that. Thank you guys.
No, our pleasure. Thank you for the awesome review.
It's true. I mean, I refer people to you guys all the time. You guys do awesome work, so well deserved.
Thank you. Now, Chris is saying February, not September. I don't know if I said September. I meant to say February 7th. Sorry, okay. February 7th, 2023. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, me too. All right, so we're going to make sure we talk about your book too. And but let's get into how the narcissist voice gets into your head, because I know one of the things that I've struggled with and most people here struggle with is even when you get away from them, they haunt you. Their voice stays in your head. Mm-hmm. So tell us how, first of all, is there like a way to tell that someone, this comes up all the time, narc radar. Is there a way to tell, like, should we be on guard? What are some signs that someone is going to approach us and it's one of those?
Yeah, so I always tell people you can learn about this two ways. First of all, you can learn about healthy and toxic behaviors, but your biggest sign that someone is a narcissist is how you feel. So your intuition, your feelings, your emotions are a feedback system. So more than anything, pay attention to how you feel around different people. If your energy is drained, if you feel like something is off, I don't know what it is, because narcissists can look different depending on what kind they are. Grandiose narcissists look charming, charismatic. You're almost kind of drawn to them because of the aura, the presence that they have. But then there's also the vulnerable. We often hear it about covert narcissists, also called victimized narcissists. They're the kinds that really seem helpless, harmless. They might even seem like a really, really nice person or good person. We can get into all really different types.
Yeah. That's the one I'm familiar with intimately.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's different kinds, but the one thing that's always there is most people, like I would say 99% of the time, people say, I knew something was off. I knew things didn't add up. I knew that something just didn't feel right, or I felt confused or anxious around this person, but they ignored it. So that's always my biggest go-to for people is if you feel like something is off, you don't even have to know why or what it is. Just slow down. Just if you're in a dating relationship, a friendship, and something seems off, you don't have to know exactly what it is. I think that's the mistake we make, is thinking, well, I'm probably just overthinking it because I don't have any logical reason to feel this way about this person. But that doesn't matter. Your body is not logic. That's our mind that gets in the way. So if your body is saying something is off here, then you listen to that and slow down and be more intentional moving forward in that relationship.
Yeah, that's so interesting to say, like, I don't have a good reason. There's nothing logical. Like, why do we always second guess ourselves? Like, I know I have those feelings sometimes around certain people, especially like in the past, being on the PTA or being involved with community activities. I'm thinking, well, everyone here is supposed to be giving and kind and community centric. So why am I getting this feeling from this person? I talk myself out, and I'm like, no, it's probably just you. Yeah. They're fine. They haven't done anything specifically, but I feel it. It's like I just feel this repelled, like they're repellent.
Right. Yeah.
So is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a perfect example, especially when you're in an environment like you're describing, where logically you would think good people are here. We're here for a good cause. I mean, narcissists can be anywhere, in good causes, in organizations, your neighbor, your friend, your spouse. It doesn't matter. It's that feeling, though. That's why we have to pay more attention to that, because like I said, our body doesn't have the thoughts. It just has feelings. It just reacts to energy. And that's why we can't explain a gut feeling, because it's a gut feeling. So it's actually to be trusted more sometimes than our logic, because we can talk ourselves out of what we really know.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, of course, this happens all the time, but it's reminding me of my own personal experiences. I'm thinking what I have cognitive dissonance over, where it's like, but it shouldn't be this way because I feel this way, but is when one of these people is like really friendly to me, and they'll go out of their way to be super nice and hug me in public, and I'm like, I just don't like them.
Yeah.
There's something, and it's rare, but it's just like this, like, don't touch me.
Yes. And that's something, we're talking about, how do narcissists get you to trust them in the beginning of the relationship? That's what a lot of them do. They seem very friendly, very nice. Like, you think, oh, I've met my soulmate, or that we're going to be best friends, or this is going to be a great work environment. Wherever they are, a lot of times the facade is sometimes a little bit off-putting, like you're saying. It's like, no, but they're a little too nice. Like, we're really not that close.
Yeah.
But narcissists are really good at creating this energy of you're just connected and you don't know why. It's like this very intense, we're meant to be together, or they act like they've known you forever, but they haven't. And so you're kind of, part of you thinks, but we're not ready for that. But then the other part's like, no, they're just being really nice. They're just being really friendly. And, we can't make assumptions. Maybe someone genuinely is like that, but that's the point. When you get that gut feeling, at least slow down and then see where that goes, so that you don't overlook all of the other warning signs that might come.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, because I'm thinking there's romantic people that push relationships, and there's friend types that also push relationships. And again, like, my brain is going and thinking back years and years ago, when I was still married, there were people that we would sometimes socialize with, and I just would get this visceral feeling like, just stop being like overly friendly with me. You're making me uncomfortable. It was in my head. And then my ex would say, oh, why are you being so cold to these people? And I'm like, I don't mean to be cold, but I'm just not comfortable. But I wasn't like that with most other people, but certain people, it's just definitely what you're saying. And I love the fact that this isn't about watching for other people's behaviors. Like, how do I tell? I have to have almost a checklist. It's about trusting yourself and trusting your gut to know I don't need to like look for specific things, because everyone has different ways of fooling other people. But I'm not going to fool myself. Like, my body is not going to lie to me.
Yes, exactly. That's why, a lot of times when we first find out or figure out someone is a narcissist or we've been narcissistically abused, we dive into narcissism, right? Like that's our first go-to is, let me understand this. I'm trying to make sense of this. I don't get it. But we hit a wall even with that, where we have to move to, okay, I get it, but that still doesn't keep me safe. Like that doesn't make you become more healed just because you understand narcissism. So we have to bring both of those pieces together. Yes, you can understand toxic behaviors and narcissistic behaviors, and we can talk about that and dissect it all day. But the reality is your body is a feedback system. Your emotions are a feedback system. And if you can learn to trust yourself and not gaslight yourself and not dismiss or deny your experiences, then that is, really the best red flag of all.
It's interesting because people that we deal with, and I'm sure you deal with too, they often will blame themselves and say, I'm a bad picker. Like I keep getting into these same relations. I keep repeating the cycle. Yeah. And so I can't trust my choices anymore. But what you're saying is really, it's not even about that. It's about you're not trusting yourself.
Yes, exactly. Because you can be the best communicator in the world. You can be the most empathetic person. You can craft, perfect sentences that don't offend someone, that take responsibility. Like I work with people on those things because they think, oh, well, I need to be able to make sure I say it this way so that I can get this reaction from this person. And I'm like, no. Let's slow down and back up. If you feel that you're having to do that, there's already a problem. So you can communicate as well or as effectively as you want to, but if you're dealing with a toxic person, you're never going to get the right feedback. So you have to be able to look at, okay, I can, heal myself, but then I have to be able to see what reaction am I getting though from other people. Because if I'm trying, and this person, they're not, responding to anything, they're not working with me, they're not compromising, they're not showing empathy, then there's a problem. You have to trust yourself at that point that I'm doing my work. This person, I keep hitting these roadblocks with. So there's something going on.
Yeah. And what you said before about slowing down, I feel like that should be a theme in general with most things.
Yes.
Because, you deal with it with clients who are trying to deal with the narcissistic abuse and heal from it. And we deal with people dealing with the toxic people within the legal system. And we often have to talk about how everyone's going to push you to do something. With what you're explaining, it's like people push you to feel a certain way. Oh, you should just do it. It's fine. There's nothing wrong. Even though there's no logical reason, but you feel like something's wrong. Like we go on calls all the time where people feel like I should just agree to something. I should just do it, right? Because they're saying it's good for me. My lawyer's saying it's good for me. And we say the same thing you said, slow down. Like everyone's going to rush you because they're trying to get you in and out as quickly as possible. You need to think, you need to pay attention, you need to carefully consider what the consequences could be. So it's a similar approach, whether it's in the relationship or as you're getting out, trying to move on with your life.
Yeah, exactly. I always say anxiety is rarely the start of a good decision. Like if you're feeling like, oh, I should just do this because then I'm going to feel better.
Say that again. Anxiety is rarely the start of a good decision.
Yes.
I love that. It's interesting because I was talking to an attorney the other day who specializes in high conflict divorce and post-separation abuse, so of course she's a unicorn. And we're going to be doing an interview about why desperation is not a good place to start negotiation.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Same idea.
Exactly. Yeah. Same concept. If you come at it with that energy, if you're feeling anxious about something, that's probably not a good place to even start to try to make that decision. It's more about getting out of that emotional state than forcing yourself to make that decision at that time.
Right. Because we know that stress, you can't think clearly. So how can you make a good decision when you're completely stressed out?
Right. Yeah. So it comes back to trusting yourself, healing yourself, because what often happens, especially if you've been with a narcissist, is you have such a critical voice that judges everything you do, like making decisions. If you've had that critical voice, we end up internalizing it, really, if we've been with a narcissist. It's like we feel that there's this outside voice that's judging everything we're doing. So if you have the anxiety, then that part's just going to judge your anxiety, which then just makes it worse. So healing again is really about learning to listen to yourself instead of judge yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, so we started talking about how they get you to trust you in the beginning of the relationship. Besides rushing you, how do they establish authority in our heads? Because that's what they do. I know that's what mine did in the past.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the first phase of any narcissistic relationship, we've often heard of it termed love bombing or idealizing, but there's a lot of getting to know you in that phase, a lot of intensely wanting to know your likes, your dislikes. So you often feel like you are really connecting with each other, you're sharing, but what's happening is they're learning about you to mirror back to you what you want. So they're learning about you in order to make you think that they're your soulmate or they're going to be your best friend or whatever that is. So there's a lot of mirroring that happens and a lot of future faking, like future plans. This is what we're going to do together. So if they can, get you to see a future together, to get you to see plans together, then it's like you're not even really in the present relationship. You're thinking, oh, but we've already got plans. Like we're going to be together. We're going to have this house. We're going to get married. We're going to have these kids, or we're going to have this kind of friendship. We're going to build this business together. So you're really not even aware at that point of the red flags that are happening because they've already sold you on the future that you're going to have together. So
that's so interesting. So it's almost like another thing you need to do is try to stay in the present. Like, how do I feel right now with this person?
Right. Instead of thinking in the future, because once you've got that, it's about controlling the image that you have of them. So if they've already sold you on, we're going to do this together, we're going to build this, we're going to have this life, we're going to have these kids, this house, then you're already thinking that you know who they are and who they're going to be. So even if what they're doing right now doesn't make sense, they've already told you, but we're going to do this. So we're on the same page. So that's a really big way they get in your head, is the future faking that happens, because you're so focused on what you're building together that you're making sense. You're trying to make sense of who they are now based on what they have told you you're building toward.
Yeah, and something that you said made me think about one way that they learn a lot about you. I know just from past experience and from what I've read and a lot of our clients' experiences is they'll keep you up really late in the middle of the night having these intimate talk and act like you're confessing to each other, like all of these things about your past, but really they are exhausting you and you're telling them things. You're the one confessing things to them, and often they'll use that information against you later. Does that sound familiar at all?
Yeah, I can definitely, that definitely happens, I'm sure, in the legal world. But I think that they very much do that as well. To your point, I've also seen narcissists kind of do the opposite in a way. Yes, they get you to confess things and share things because they create this false safe place, but they will also act like they're sharing intimate details.
Right.
They'll tell you things that they're not telling anyone. I've never told anyone this.
Always.
Right?
Yep.
So you feel special and significant, and like they're trusting you with this. So they kind of put this on you, like you think that they're building something with you or that they're telling you because they trust you so much. So then who are you to question something that they've told you? Because if you ever do say, that was like really weird that they told me that early, or if something they confess to you is concerning about something that they've done, they put you in this weird position where now you feel bad asking them about it because they've trusted you with this, sacred information about them.
Sacred information is a great term, because they'll often say, like, I've never told anybody this before.
Yeah.
And then you think, this is really early. Like, I've known you for just 2 days.
Yeah, it's always the more intense a relationship is, that's definitely a sign. And, thinking about how narcissists groom you and kind of like what they do in order to, again, make you trust them and build the relationship, is they start planting seeds early of the expectations they have for you in the relationship by subtly giving you consequences or rewarding you for what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ignore what they've done or an inconsistency, then they might reward you with a really good day or a really good date night. Like, I'm going to surprise you. So you're actually being trained and conditioned over time in a narcissistic relationship to not share your feelings, to not question them, because when you don't do those things, they actually seem better. They seem happier. You have good days. So you think, oh yeah, I'll just won't share my feelings because they've had a stressful day. I don't want to stress them out. So we'll just talk about them. And before you know it, you never share about you. But you think it's been your idea when they've actually kind of been like breadcrumbing you the whole way to act the way they want you to.
Yeah, and that makes me think about the whole idea of coercive control, which is, you know, emotional abuse is a big part of that, financial, legal, sexual, all kinds of stuff. But part of the goal of somebody, like an abusive person in a coercively controlling relationship, is to reduce conflict because they don't want to be questioned. Yeah. So the way to reduce conflict is one person doesn't ever stand up for themselves. Right? Right. So the one person's kind of more in charge and the other one's like, I don't want to, you know, make anything uncomfortable. So I'm just not going to question. I'm just going to believe. I'll just keep the peace. And that's where that term walking on eggshells is. Like, what do I have to do to make sure that there's never conflict? And couples that say they never fight, that's kind of weird because everybody has a personality, right? And you can't, we're not all exactly the same. Yeah. So you'd think that it's normal to disagree sometimes. Not that it has to turn into a fight, but to just disagree. So to me, that's a red flag when someone's like, oh, we never fight. I'm like, well, why not? Who's the one who's staying quiet all the time?
Right. Yeah. You would expect at least discussions to be had. But to your point there, and that speaks to how when you're with a narcissist, you have to be in their reality. There is no space for your reality, your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions. So you have to enter into their world. And that's the only one that's okay. The only opinions, the only perspectives that are okay with a narcissist is their own, because they construct such a delicate reality that if you call out their inconsistencies or say that you need something, then you're bursting their bubble in a sense. You are poking holes in their reality, and their fragile ego can't stand that. So instead of looking at themselves, they're not going to self-reflect, they project. So the problem is you. The problem is you're having a problem, at least in their mind.
So many things you're saying, Chelsey. I'm just like remembering from a long time ago, and what in my own relationship, my ex was several years older than me, a few years older, and the dynamic was he was the authority and I was like the more flighty one. And at one point, our kitchen completely fell apart and we needed to get like all new stuff and we had to get new cabinets. And so he said that the cabinets, which were intended to hold dishes, would collapse if we put dishes in. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And he's like, no, really, like we should put the dishes in the drawers because they're too heavy. And I'm like, that's crazy. But I rarely had questioned him. And I just kept thinking, like, I know he's wrong, but how can he be this delusional? Because a lot of them are delusional. Their reality doesn't make any sense. Yeah. We don't question it. And so we had the contractor there one day, and I said, you know, her name was Pat. I was like, Pat, the cabinets are built to hold the dishes, right? Like, that's why they're up there. And she's like, of course. And I said, so it's not like we have to put them in the drawers and keep them empty. And she's like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But he got very angry that I did that because I questioned. I involved a third person in keeping, you know, making sure what the reality actually was. Right. But I was scared though. I did it anyway because I was like, am I crazy? Mm-hmm. You know, for thinking that the cabinets are intended for the plates, like everybody else has. But that's where you get to that point where they become such the authority that you think any little thing, even though it makes no sense, like maybe they're right.
Yeah. Well, they won't allow you, or they don't want to be questioned. And that's some of the entitlement as well. Like if I say it, then that makes it so. That it doesn't matter. There's no room for other opinions. It doesn't even matter if you have proof. That's why they don't really care about proof. Or you showing them anything, because what they're interested in is that you reflect back to them the reality that they want to see. And they need to see themselves as, in charge and successful and like whatever their supply needs are. And so you're not allowed to question or to even have a different opinion, because that means then they're not special, that what they think isn't better than or more significant than everyone else. Because if they give you space to have your opinion, then that means that you're on equal playing field, and that's never okay for them.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so so they gradually start becoming the authority in our head, and is there anything else on that, like how we continue to feel like we're not allowed to have our own feelings?
Well, like we talked about before, they'll make you feel special and significant, sometimes by sharing information with you. They'll love bomb you, the intensity. They also are pretty strategic about isolating you. And they do this in a few ways. They start poking holes in your relationships or placing doubts in your mind about friends or family, or is this person really the best for you? Like, they really supporting you? Or did you see how they looked at you? I think your friend was, really jealous of whatever happened. They start to basically, they want to become the only voice that you listen to. They are also really good at triangulating and talking to people about people and like being that mediator. So they'll come back to you and say a lot of things like, so-and-so told me this, or I heard this, even if you've never heard that from that person. But then they make it also to where you don't want to go ask that person, because they'll say something like, oh, well, they told me in confidence, or they don't trust you. I think your relationship isn't what you think it is. So then you feel like this weird place of like, well, I don't even know how to move forward. So I'll just won't talk to that person as much, because now I feel weird and I think that they think something of me. Then it's all happening in your head, because it's all the narcissist just telling you what other people are saying or thinking about you, when reality is probably none of it's happening. But
I know
that isolation happens over time.
And you're again reminding me of an example from life. We had a neighbor for like almost 20 years, and my ex he had said at some point, they don't really like you, or they think you're a certain way, or I don't remember what it was, but I just felt like that neighbor doesn't like me. I don't know why, but she just doesn't. So after he had moved out years later, the neighbor and I started talking, and she said, I have to tell you something. I feel really bad because I feel like I've never really talked to you. But she said, your ex-husband always made my husband and I really uncomfortable. Oh. And she's like, and I just thought, that's something is up with him. We actually called him like psychopath as a joke. And I was like, what? Wow. And she said, yeah. And she said, and so he's the reason that we never spoke to you. And I said, oh my God, he told me that, whatever it was, you didn't like me. And she said, that is so not true. So I'm thinking, we spent almost 2 decades like tiptoeing around each other because of something that he had said that was completely not true. Yeah. And I felt so bad, because she and I actually got along really well. And then she moved, and it was like, oh, we could have been friends all those years.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. And see, you didn't feel comfortable going to her because he had already put in your head how she felt about you. And if they're your partner, like, there's assumed a level of trust. Like, especially if you don't know that they're a narcissist yet, then you assume that they're not going to lie to you, or that they're not lying to you. So there's a sense of, I trust this person because they're my partner, or I'm with them, or they're my friend. So they're looking out for me, and that's how they frame it. Like, I just wanted you to know, I'm just looking out for you. So you, again, don't think to question it. And so you have less and less of a voice.
Yeah. So you lose your voice in these relationships. Like, how do you ever get it back? Because that's a huge struggle. Like, people that we meet, and I'm sure you too, because you probably meet them earlier in the process, they can't even make simple decisions. Like, they don't even know what foods they like.
Yeah.
They don't know what kinds of, like they've completely lost their sense of self.
Right. Yeah. Which is totally normal. I mean, one of the first things I always want to encourage people with is that where you are is okay. You are in this weird transition phase where life wasn't what you thought it was, and it's not where you want it to be. So you're in this kind of place where you don't know who you are anymore because you can't go back to who you were, but you're not where you want to be. And first of all, let that be okay. That is what healing looks like. It's in this space because at least now you're aware that you need to find your sense of self and that you're not just listening to the narcissist. So you have that space. So it is really important to protect your healing process, to give yourself space to grow into your voice. And, one of the ways to do that is to be intentional, first of all, of not having many passive or active enablers or toxic people in your world at that point. Now, I know sometimes we can't avoid certain people, but at least mentally and emotionally, keeping some distance. You don't have to tell certain people what you're going through or your healing process or what it's like. Because sometimes when we open that up to other people, they can start to gaslight us or say, wow, I had no idea like it was that much, or you really should be over that relationship by now. I can't believe you're still feeling that way. I don't know why you can't make a simple decision on what food you want. Like, are you sure that, there's not something else going on or you don't have a problem? So it's really important to give yourself this space to explore what you like and what you don't like, and also protect that healing time.
Is there something you recommend? I mean, I know therapy, obviously, but is there something else people can do as part of that healing journey?
Yes. So one of the first things you can start doing is something called metacognition, which is thinking about your thoughts. So a lot of times we have a thought or feeling and we react to it as if it's true. So let's say you are feeling irritable and you don't know why. So narcissist's voice will tend to come in, or that self-critical voice, and say that you're irritable and you're such a negative person and why are you like this? But with metacognition, it's more about just being aware or mindful that you're experiencing that emotion or having that thought. So instead of judging yourself for feeling anxious, you take a step back and go, wow, I'm feeling really anxious. I wonder what's going on. You kind of check in with yourself. Have I eaten enough today? Have I gotten up from my desk? Have I just been sitting here all day? Have I had a stressful day? Is there something I can do for myself, even if it's simple as going to get a drink of water, get a snack, call a friend, take a break, whatever it is? That gives you the space to figure out who you are, because you can't grow if you're judging everything. So metacognition, thinking about your thoughts and just being a little bit more mindful, is a really good place to start.
Yeah, I'm thinking as you're saying that so many people say, I feel really bad. I feel like I shouldn't feel this way. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to keep fixating. I want to just move on with my life. And we have to say, but it's okay. Like, stop doing things to just forget about it.
Yes, because whatever, totally. Because whatever you judge gets stuck. So if we judge an emotion, if we judge a thought, if we judge where we are, then you're getting stuck. Also, I've encouraged people to look at it like the reason you're having a trigger, the reason you're feeling the way you do, is because what you went through was real. I know sometimes we get really upset that we have a trigger. We're like, I don't want that trigger anymore. I don't want to feel that way. But at the same time, a trigger is validating what you've been through. You wouldn't have the trigger if what you just experienced didn't happen or wasn't real.
That's so interesting. Chelsey, as you're talking, I'm writing down all this stuff to turn into posts. Like, me and my quotes. So these are great. All right, I saw also a question came in that said something like, do they occasionally, or do they sometimes with their words and thoughts make you feel like you are the narcissist? And that comes up often. Can you talk about that and how common it is? Because people are always like, I think it's me. I'm really worried.
Yes, I would venture to say probably 99% of my clients start there. I mean,
wow.
Almost everyone has had that thought at some point or another. Am I a narcissist? Am I the toxic person? Is it me? Is there something wrong with me? And so yes, completely normal. Totally will validate that, because we have to remember that narcissists don't self-reflect, they project. So whereas you, because you are a self-reflective person, are wondering, am I the narcissist? Am I the problem? Is this something I'm doing? But a narcissist is not doing that. So they're not taking time out to think, do I have a part in this? They're just projecting everything onto you. So to me, the fact that you're self-reflecting and you're wondering if you're the narcissist probably highly means you are not the narcissist, because very rarely do actual narcissists ever stop to wonder if they're the problem, because their fragile core, they have so many defense mechanisms like denial and gaslighting and blame shifting. They never even get to that core to ask, am I the problem? So if you're self-reflecting and you're wondering about that, then that's a completely normal part of the process. And to me, proves that you're not, because you're taking time to self-reflect.
Right. And taking accountability.
Yeah. And willing to do something about it, willing to say, well, if I am, what should I do? And that's always the next question. People are so worried that they are a narcissist, and then they're really bothered by the thought that they're a narcissist. And having worked with some narcissistic clients, that's not the way that it goes. It's more like really pulling them to try to get any insight, and you feel like you're dragging them the whole way, because they're just, those defense mechanisms are so quick. It's so challenging to get them to put the down long enough to see their insecure core.
Somebody just wrote a comment that resonated with me, and that said, well, I'm being told that the reason I am the toxic one or the narcissist is because I haven't dealt with my own unresolved trauma.
Okay. Yes. So going back to, how do narcissists get in your head? They learn about your past. You open up to them. They know that you don't have a great relationship with your dad, that you have abandonment concerns, that you've had trust issues in the past, that you've been cheated on, whatever it is. They know those things. They feed them back to you and say, that's why we have a problem. That is why it's so important for us to do our own work and self-reflect, because if you know something is a trigger, you know you've had this thing happen in the past, you know you have an insecurity around this, then you can look at it and say, okay, yeah, maybe I do have some trust issues, and what you're doing is still not okay. So it's not an either or. If you don't know, though, your triggers, your vulnerabilities, your insecurities, then narcissists can use that against you and then say, that's our problem. So self-awareness and self-knowledge is so powerful in a narcissistic relationship, because whatever you don't know about you is a vulnerability. So the more you know, the more you can protect yourself, and the less ammunition the narcissist has against you.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, because so much of this conversation is things that you do have control over yourself, what you can do to help yourself, how healing yourself will make you less likely to keep encountering this, because you learn to trust yourself, because you learn to pay attention to your gut and your instincts, instead of just that outward, like, what is this person saying to me that I need to pay attention and check my checklist? Like, is this something that narcissists always say? Like, having
right.
to memorize things.
Yes. And that can be a whole other rabbit hole that people go down, because then they're trying to weigh, well, does a narcissist say this on a first date, or do they do this, or would a narcissist like this, or I think this is narcissistic. And that in and of itself can be a distraction from seeing the whole person, because like we've talked about in previous episodes, there's, different types of narcissists. So if you're focused on, all narcissists are very grandiose and charming and charismatic, you're going to miss several other types because you're thinking, they're in this certain kind of presence. But your intuition, your emotions are always a feedback system. And it doesn't matter what the narcissistic presentation is or what type they are.
Yeah. Okay. I see another question, and I'm thinking of the term reactive abuse. Is it common for them to push you and push and push you until you finally lose it, and then they tell you that you're crazy?
100%. Yes, reactive abuse. You're spot on. So that can also feel really destabilizing and confusing, and I know really upset people. Again, obviously because this person is self-reflective and empathetic and they're bothered by these reactions. So that's something to pay attention to too. Do you only react this way with this person? Because a lot of times people will say, I never do this. Like, this is so not me. This is out of character. But with this person in this situation, I'm someone I don't even like. That's a big sign too, because if it were truly you, you would have all of these problems and all of these relationships. But if it's just with this person, then there's a problem there.
Yeah, yeah. So important to remember. Okay, so as someone is healing, you had said that there were certain types of people that they need to avoid during this period. So tell us more about that.
Well, obviously, if we can avoid narcissists or toxic people, that's a huge one. But passive and active enablers are really important to create some space from as well. And what I mean by that is passive enablers are those that they don't actively go in and support the narcissist, but they don't really say anything about them either. So they're the ones who are making excuses or justifications. Like, was it really that bad? They seem like such a great guy. Are you sure you gave them enough time? Everyone deserves second chances. They just had a really rough childhood. So they make these comments and you immediately feel that sense of guilt or shame. So that's more of the passive enablers. The active enablers are really, sorry, my cat is over here making noise.
That's okay, my dog was doing it before too.
So active enablers are the ones who are kind of in the trenches with the narcissist. They are the flying monkeys. They're going around doing the narcissist's bidding. They're going and specifically trying to support the narcissist's narrative. So enablers of any kind, it's really important to limit contact with them. And I understand you might live with an enabler. You might work with an enabler. So you're thinking, how can I limit contact? Well, you can decide to have more service level conversations with them. If that enabler person tries to open up like, how are you doing after the breakup? But you know that they're just going to gaslight you, then you're like, I'm handling it. I'm getting through. Not because you are lying to them or not being honest with them, but because you are choosing who to open up to. And that's part of you getting your voice back too, is you don't have to answer a question just because it's asked. You don't have to open up to someone that you don't feel comfortable opening up to. So you can create just that emotional space of deciding who you're going to let see your healing process and who you're going to create some space or distance from.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard this in different terms before about how you have to be careful who you share your story with, and that you should come up with narratives after a breakup with like the neighbors, the people at church or synagogue or wherever you go, like people in the grocery store versus people that you're closer to. And that sometimes it takes time to decide who I can trust with this story.
Yeah, very much. I always encourage people, like, this is your journey. I mean, that's a huge step. A lot of times because narcissistic abuse survivors are used to doing what they're asked or wanting to not make anyone uncomfortable. So if someone asks them something, they feel obligated to share with them because they don't want that person to feel like left out or something in some way. They want to give people what they ask. But this is part of you, getting your own voice back, and healing is deciding who you let in to see your world. And you don't have to let in those people who are just going to judge or criticize or question how you're healing. Healing is your process, and it needs time and space and support and compassion to really grow. Yeah,
so important. Okay, so Chelsey, tell us about your book and tell us how people can find that and find out more about you and get in touch if they need help.
Yeah, well, obviously, everybody can follow me on Instagram if you'd like. I'm here and on all the socials at Chelsey Brooke Cole. My book is coming out next year, and the best way to get info on that, I'll give early access to everyone on my email list, and I also send a free newsletter on understanding and healing from narcissistic abuse. Comes out twice a month, so if anyone's interested in that, then you can just go to chelseybrookecole.com/newsletter. Sign up there, you'll get my newsletter, and then you'll also be the first to be notified of when my book is released and get all the exclusives.
Excellent. Well, I'm psyched because both of our books are coming out next year, 2023. So I'm sure we'll be back on again, as usual, to talk about that stuff.
Yes, definitely. There's so much more we could dive into. I'm super excited about y'all's book as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thanks again for coming on. And,
so
you know, we'll just keep doing it. We just keep doing our series.
Okay. That sounds good.
All right. Talk to you
so much.
soon, Chelsey. Happy holidays.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.